Good morning, Mr. Stone. How are you today?
Good morning, Tazagramma. I'm quite all right. How are you?
Good, mate. Good Christmas time. How was your day?
My day's just begun. It's only 6:30 in the morning here. I'm over in Esperance in WA after quite a long drive getting over here from Melbourne, but it's been good.
I hear you almost didn't make it.
Are you referring to our flat tire?
Yeah, that one. Yep.
Yeah, it was one of those things where you kind of plan for it or think about it and you think, oh yeah, it probably won't happen. But then we were camping in the Flinders Ranges and woke up one morning and had a completely flat tire. And I just thought, damn it. One of the worst places we could probably have a flat tire because there's nowhere to get it fixed or anything. I do have a spare, but I didn't really want to use a spare and have to be driving around lots of rocky dirt roads. But luckily, it turned out okay. It was just a screw in the tire, and the first town we got to when we left had a puncture repair place. So, yeah, it turned out all right.
Oh, how's the weather been? How far's the drive first? How far's the drive from Melbourne to Esperance?
It's around just shy of 3,000 kilometres, I think. Just Christmas Eve, we actually drove from Ceduna to Esperance in one day, and that was 1,400 kilometres just by itself and 15 hours and a whole lot of nothing across the Nullarbor.
You could have walked that in a day though, couldn't you?
Yeah, that's definitely a walk you cannot do in a day.
Yeah, cool. So Esperance, you're travelling on from Esperance now, or you're staying there?
We'll probably go to Albany, is it? And hang around there for a couple of days. I'd be happy to just stay in Esperance for a week. The beaches here are beautiful. The coastline, just turquoise water, white sand. It's absolutely amazing. But yeah, we've got a few other things to see, and then try and forget our long drive as much as we can. So because we're going to have to do it in a few more days, heading back the other way.
Nice. Well, we're both recording on the road today. Obviously, I'm up in northwest Tasmania at the moment with Susan's family. We're about to continue on a road trip ourselves. So we're both recording from mobile phones and probably from equipment that we're not normally used to recording from. So hopefully our audio quality is nice, and all the trucks and car noise that I can hear in the background at the moment's not too bad. I'm also suffering badly from hay fever. So hopefully my sniffling doesn't sound too loud.
Yeah, we'll start this episode with a disclaimer and excuses saying that this may not be the best sounding podcast. I'm also on my laptop. I'm had to get instead of camping, I'm in a motel by the road. So I've got bird noises, car noises, and yeah, this will be fun.
No, we were determined to record one while we're on the road. I mean, this is kind of one of the challenges I think a lot of photographers have themselves. It's not just, well, obviously they don't necessarily record podcasts, but being on the road and producing images, and particularly if you're posting to social media, those sort of things, there's a lot of challenges around that. So I think we should have a talk about that very soon. But firstly, this is our last episode for this year. Massive thank you again to our major sponsor, Nisi, for supporting us throughout the last 3 months. Anybody looking for filters or camera filters, Nisi are offering a special promotion to all of our listeners. If you go via nisifilters.com.au using a coupon code Project RAWcast at the checkout process, you get a 5% discount. So as always, thank you, Nisi, for supporting us, and we're looking forward to a massive year next year as well. We've got some big things happening early on in the year, which we'll talk about in upcoming episodes, but it's been a big few months for us, hasn't it? So
yeah, it's been a good end to 2016, just starting this podcast, and it's been great. I've really enjoyed our little chats, Tazagramma, and I've just loved the support that we've got, especially from Nisi and other sponsors. And it's a great way to end the year. Yeah,
absolutely. Look, I've just come back from a trip from Sydney, and I was kind of hanging out with quite a few of the guys in the focus group up there, and some of the people that I would never have expected to really listen to us have just had massive compliments and support for what we're trying to do. So we're going to kick off next year with a big one, hopefully continue on growing and reaching out to as many people with some general photography discussions and giving some tips and hopefully getting people talking about photography and as passionately as we do. So,
yeah, we'll continue our strive to not only give our listeners as much advice and tips and information and stuff that we can give from our experiences, but also work towards any prizes or deals that we can try and get for you as well to help you continue your photography adventures.
Cool. Now, look, you're obviously on the road. I'm the same. I'm going to be doing a bit of a camping trip around the northwest and west coast of Tassie over the next 10 days. I got a message from you the other day saying you're not happy with the quality of your editing of your photos when you're on the road. So just a quick question. Do you want to send them to me and I can edit them for you and send it back to you or something?
It is a bit of a challenge if I don't have to edit while I'm on the road, because this is, for me and my wife, this is pretty much a holiday, but because we're traveling around, photography is something that I have to do or I really want to do as well. So I do have my tablet for editing and my Wacom pen and stylus and everything, and I've got my laptop, so I can edit if I need to, but it's not going to get to the quality that I would like to have on my website or anything. So I'm building up a huge amount of photos, but I can't really control the color and just the details that I'd like to, or that I know I could do. So it can be very challenging, especially if you are on a campaign and you do need to get out images quite quickly and promptly. Then you may struggle a bit if you're on the road and don't have power or Wi-Fi or all these different things.
You're going to have a few good, nice little surprises when you get home then, because I'm pretty sure you won't be looking as closely at the photos as you will be when you get home. Something I think we're both very thankful of is our partners are very supportive of what we do. Susan is massively supportive of me, and obviously this next trip that I'm about to go on over the next week and a bit is really just focused on photography, and that's pretty much what she wants as well, is to go out and take a lot of photos. And you're the same, so Maria's really supportive of what you do, which is really awesome. Kind of makes it really easy for us to be able to do things, even things like this, recording a podcast on the road, which, you know, we don't really have to do, but obviously our partners are right behind us as well. It makes it pretty easy.
As I said, this being a holiday, I'm not sort of setting out and planning photography. It's almost, photography is coming second to seeing all the sights and driving around and just relaxing, basically. So I've had to change the way I normally do photography, and I've kind of set a challenge to get more just stock photography. So I'm not really getting the fine art landscape kind of things where I've got a couple of hours to spend in a spot, or I can plan to be somewhere for a sunrise or a sunset, because I'm driving all day and seeing lots of different things and I don't know where I'm going to be for sunset. So it does kind of make it a bit difficult to get those shots that I'd really want to get.
That kind of makes it exciting though, doesn't it? I mean, not knowing where you're going to be and kind of not really having a plan in the back of your mind. I mean, obviously it's challenging because you'd like to kind of do a bit of a recce or a recon of the sites that you're going to and kind of, you know, go back and judge the conditions and kind of read the tides if you're doing any kind of seascape stuff. But it's kind of exciting as well though, isn't it, really? Particularly if you've never been to the places that you've been to just go along with your camera and see what you can capture.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm getting some shots that I really like and my wife really likes, and I guess there's just a bit of a frustration of seeing so many great sites and thinking, I'd love to be shooting here at sunrise or sunset, or when the light's a bit better or when the weather's a bit better, but I've got to move on. I've got to be somewhere 400 k's away from here.
Try doing that with the pressure of clients then.
Yeah, so it can be very difficult, and when the photography is the second concern, or it's not, the main reason that you're traveling around.
Have you had any issues with your camera gear?
No issues with the camera gear, which is good. I kind of made sure everything was clean and in working order before I left. Yeah, the camera gear's been all right, other than just I think I'm going to run out of memory and just have to transfer everything over onto the laptop and maybe even delete things off a memory card and not have them backed up. But we'll see how we go.
Just get some new memory cards, mate. You'll be right.
Yeah, true.
Cool. Look, last episode we touched on a lot of things, but one of the things that we really wanted to talk about was different metering modes in your camera. So we kind of touched on exposure compensation and those sort of things, but you kind of started to get really technical and speak a lot of jargon and gave me one of those headaches that I seem to get when I seem to chat with you a bit around the different metering modes in the camera. So we're talking like spot metering, evaluative and center weighted metering, those sort of things. So do you want to have a bit of a chat about what those are doing? I mean, it's quite complicated. Obviously, camera is designed purely to capture light. I mean, that's what it is, but it can do it in so many different ways. It can read that light in so many different ways. So, do you want to kind of touch on what these are?
Yeah, well, I think last episode we brought it up when we were talking about exposure compensation, and I mentioned that there's different ways that you can set the camera to how it reads that exposure of a different scene. And there's so many different ways you can customize or change the camera depending on what you're shooting. And one of those ways is the exposure metering. And most of the time, it'll probably be a default setting to evaluative metering, where it may sort of see the scene as a whole in different quadrants, or there's other ones such as center weighted, partial, or spot metering. And these are just different ways to localize certain areas of what you're shooting for the camera to read that area as the correct exposure. What the camera is actually doing as well with this metering is taking the reflected light that the camera is reading and trying to expose it for a mid-gray or an 18% gray. If there's a lot of light or half bright areas, half dark areas, and it'd probably do a pretty good job of correctly exposing the image. Where it can be a bit more, or can have a bit more trouble, is if it's a high key image or a low key image. So something there's a lot of white or a lot of bright in the scene, such as if you're shooting in the snow, it's quite light, it's quite a high key image. So a center weighted or a evaluative metering isn't really going to do a good job, because it's going to take all that brightness and try and dull it down to a mid-grey.
So with center weighted metering, I'm kind of guessing and assuming here that kind of reads more of the scene, or kind of, takes the light from a larger part of the scene. Is this right?
It will take light from, well, as it suggests, or as it sort of sounds, the center of the image, and kind of ignore the periphery, the corners a bit more. It'll just have a look at the center and then give less weight to the outer edges of the image, because most of the time you're just putting the camera straight ahead, and what you're looking at in the front you're wanting to have exposed correctly. So that's kind of how most people would probably shoot.
And so on the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got spot metering, which is literally reading a very tiny part, and look, technically about 3.8 to 4% of the image total is what it's reading the light from.
Yeah, so I guess an example where spot metering would be used a bit better is if you had a subject, a person that was heavily backlit, so you've got a lot of light coming towards the image. You could use spot metering on the person's face, because you want their face to be correctly exposed, and that way it won't take the whole image, it'll just take that particular spot, and
therefore creating blown out skies.
yes, therefore blowing out the skies. But in most cases, that spot metering will be set to the center of the image, so it's just taking that center point and making it a lot smaller. You can use things such as exposure lock, which would just be a button on the back of the camera, so you could have the spot metering of where you want your image to be, the exposure to be evaluated, hold down the exposure lock and then recompose the image, and it'll still have the exposure for that spot that you set it. Similar to if you use the focus, the half press of the shutter to do the autofocus, and you could focus where you want, then recompose, and then do a full press to take the shot. You can do the same thing with the exposure lock button.
Okay, and so we've got center weighted and spot metering. So right smack bang in the middle, we've got partial metering. So this is kind of reading a little bit bigger of an area than spot metering in a scene, and a lot less of an area of center weighted metering. So what would that be useful for?
I guess if you did have a bigger area, if you could use it in the same situation as a person that was backlit, maybe if you're a bit closer to the person.
So if they've got a bigger head.
If they've got a Tassigramma-sized head, then you could use it. Yeah, definitely for that. But again, it's something that does take a bit of practice to work out which one is going to be useful in different situations. And it can be very tricky when you first start out and can be a bit confusing. But it is worth having a practice when you've got the time, just to see how it affects your images and your exposure by doing the different settings, practicing, seeing how it goes, because it can be quite useful when a situation arises.
I think with this one, it's probably a matter of taking some reference shots or setting up on a tripod and taking it, shooting a scene, like obviously a set scene, and changing between these three particular different types of camera metering modes, and just having a look and see how it affects the exposure across the entire image, or whether it, just comparing the three together. I think it's a great way to kind of have a bit of a play with this one. Just set your camera up on a tripod and find a scene that you like and have a play with it, and just keep the scene consistent across, so you can kind of see variations in exposure across different parts of the image. So that's probably a good way to just experiment and have a play with that one.
Yeah, and this is used heavily with exposure compensation as well. So you can set your exposure compensation to +1 exposure, use a spot metering to say I want this to be +1 of mid-gray, and then take the shot. Or there's a lot of different things you can do to play around with it, and it does come back to reading the histogram as well and making sure that looks kind of correct to how you expect it to be. But yeah, it's worth playing around with and can be quite useful if you do get to understand it a bit better. And we'll put a link as well in the show notes for a good description of the camera metering modes.
Yeah, definitely. Look, just check out the projectrawcast.com website with on episode 11. We'll definitely put some links up to this one, because I think it's another one of those very underused components of a camera as well, particularly for beginners. I mean, you're starting to get quite complicated here. I mean, just learning aperture, shutter speed, and ISO is complicated enough. Never mind throwing in different ways to calculate the lights at those settings as well. So yeah, we'll put some links up to this one and go have a look and check it out and have a bit of a play with it and see what you can come up with. So
yeah, it's by no means something that you have to know and would use all the time, but it is one of those tools that you can go to if a lighting situation isn't as perfect as you'd like it to be.
Definitely. Mate, we're coming into the new year now, so it's going to be 2017. It's pretty crazy. Have you got any goals that you're setting for yourself for the new year for your photography? I mean, obviously, apart from travel and getting to different places, but in terms of just improving your own knowledge of photography, you got any goals that you're setting yourself?
I guess I've always just got ongoing goals. I don't really have a New Year's resolution to be better at photography or improve my knowledge. I always just want to improve and learn more. I don't want to stagnate and feel like I know everything, because I know I don't know everything. I know I'm not the best I can be. I can always improve. There's always room to improve. But no real specific goals, I suppose. So just the continuous ongoing ones to build a business and take lots of different shots from different places and keep challenging myself. But how about you? Have you set any New Year's resolutions?
Look, obviously, apart from improving photography, I think just constantly improving editing and those sort of things. My goals are probably more around the business model of photography. So I'd like to generate at least 2 more sustainable methods of revenue over the new year, which kind of allows me then to really take a bit more time to focus on photography. I think that's one big thing. Obviously through my job, I'm quite committed to my client base through marketing. So I would love to spend more time with photography, but for me to do that, obviously it's got to be a kind of a shift in revenue streams away from, the reliance on clients for that sort of stuff. So I think that's probably my biggest thing for 2017 now, is to be able to spend more time on photography. It's, I'm already spending countless hours every week on social media and creating podcasts and obviously getting out there and shooting and those sort of things. So really now it's just about being able to create that time commitment, which just means that it's got to be a sustainable time as well, and kind of even more replace an income that I've got through my marketing type stuff. So that's probably my biggest thing at the moment, just really now looking outside of the box at other ways to create revenue, and obviously, there's obvious paths you can go down, kind of targeting tourism market, those sort of things, but that's kind of not where I want to be over the new year. So that's my biggest thing now, is just trying to work on that, building more of a business around photography and doing things differently. So for me, I don't see the point in doing what everybody else is doing, because it just doesn't make sense when you're creating competition for yourself or entering highly competitive markets with photography. So that's my thing, and constantly improving through editing. And I'd like to go back to experimenting with some of the original styles of photography that I used to do, which I love macro photography as well. It's probably not something I would share on my current Instagram account, but it's one of those things that I actually started off with photography. It was with macro. I used to love the bringing out or shooting things and bringing out the details that you couldn't see with a human eye, I suppose. So I'd like to go back to experimenting and playing with that sort of stuff, We're
not going to see any pictures of flies' eyes all focus stacked and all detailed popping up on your
probably not on my Instagram
website.
account. Maybe on my website. I might do some blog posts around that sort of stuff, but definitely not I won't be posting that on Instagram. But yeah, I know it's strange, but obviously, we talk a lot about landscape photography, but there's so many different types of photography. I've also done a lot of food photography as well, and something a lot of people don't know is I run Tasmanian Food Guide as one of our other businesses, and the @Tassie Food Guide Instagram account. I've done a lot of food photography for restaurants and those sort of things as well. So maybe just going back to doing that and really just using my camera as much as possible. That's one of the things I think that I'll be aiming for 2017. I'd like to have a play with some high-speed flash photography, those sort of things, and just experiment and learn as much as I can along the way.
That's important for photography business as well, is not to be, I guess, some people would do it well, being heavily niched and being great at one specific thing of photography. But if you do want to improve and grow and have a successful photography business, it does help to be a bit broader and know and understand lots of different types of photography.
Absolutely. I think it's just a matter of just knowing how to use a camera, really. I mean, a lot of people kind of focus on the one niche and go down that path, but just knowing how to use your camera in general. And one weakness that I definitely have within my photography knowledge is the use of flashes, studio lighting, that sort of thing. And that's something I would love to know and learn just for my own knowledge. Never know, it might turn into something more, but definitely the use of flashes and lighting. And it's not hard to go and invest in some equipment. I mean, I've got the Canon 430 EX2 flash, and it's sat in my bag for, I probably haven't taken it out for nearly 2 years. So I've never really actually played with it. I bought it for a particular purpose a few years ago and used it for that, and never got back to it. So, but I'd love to have a go with some studio lighting and maybe just experiment and kind of work that sort of stuff out just for my own knowledge. So hopefully 2017 can kind of bring a lot more knowledge, but also some good new revenue sources, which for me, going down lines or just going down avenues that people aren't necessarily already doing is a big one for me, because I don't see the point in entering markets that are already flooded and dominated by key people.
And this kind of makes me think of an Instagram thing that you did recently based on something that does tend to happen around the end of the year. And I guess a lot of people like to reflect on the photos they've taken and ones that they've liked and other people have liked, and they like to share their top 10 or top 5 or just their top photos of the year. And this does mean that on social media you can show your best stuff again and maybe get a few more followers and likes and engagement. But you were thinking that that's maybe not the best thing to do, and you're looking to move forward with your photography and not focus on what you've done, but what you can do in the future. You must have got quite a big response when you put up those stories saying to not post your top 10 and maybe post your newest and best.
A big response is probably a little understatement for this one, I think. Earlier this week, last week, I kind of scrolled through my feed and I saw maybe 15 or 16 accounts that I follow and engage with regularly, all posting top 10 or top 16 or top 6 or top 7, top 9 pics, whatever it is. And I'd already seen all the images, so this is my personal opinion. This has got, it's not factual, it's just my personal opinion, is I'd already seen the images. And I looked at it and I thought, like, some of these guys are Australia's leading landscape photographers. Okay, I could only just imagine and how good their image libraries would be and how much selection they've had, some of the locations they visited, all that sort of stuff. My thought is, why share old stuff when you've probably got new stuff there to share? Now, I understand both sides of this. So firstly, obviously there's a strategy on social media around sharing images that you've already got great engagement from, getting great engagement again, and potentially sharing those images with a slightly more or bigger audience base than you had when you originally shared them, and maybe reaching those people again, hoping for features to generate you more followers. So I do 100% understand this. My thing about this is I think there's a lot of people who do it just because other people do it. It's almost like people are following each other. It's some of the smaller guys are just following the bigger guys because they do that. And I think it's important to have some individuality in your own strategy around social media. And obviously this time of the year, people want downtime. People want to spend time with their families. All that. That's all well and good. My thing is, it's probably also a great opportunity because of that exact fact to share new content and to get engagement from new content and to experiment and to play around to improve your editing process, to go out and shoot, in your local area wherever you can. So this particular set of story posts, I had 66 individual conversations started as a result of this. Everybody was positive about this. I literally got smashed. Now, I sent them to you yourself, so you saw these yourself, and I had a lot of great support for this particular thing. I do see it a lot, and I understand why people are doing it. My simple fact is that why look back? Why not look forward? I think you always improving your photography is a key thing. Every time you take a new photo, you're hoping to improve it over the last one. From January this year to December this year, I guarantee you 95% of people have probably improved their post-processing techniques. So my simple thing is, why not just share something new? Why not go out and shoot something new? Challenge yourself to constantly be improving. The easy road to engagement and the easy road to sharing content is not always the best road. And just because other people do it doesn't mean to say it's a good strategy. It's a good strategy for the people who are doing it, maybe, but it's not necessarily a good strategy for everybody. And I think a lot of beginners and a lot of guys who are just starting out with photography, who maybe just started their Instagram accounts this year, those sort of things, I don't think it's the best strategy, and I don't think it's the best thing to do. I think constantly improving, throwing out new content, producing new images, telling new stories, challenging yourself to constantly be improving. Those are the things that people should be doing. That's my personal opinion. I had a lot of great support this week, and I thank everybody for the conversations that started around this. It's no slight on anybody who does do it. It's their own choice. But I think a lot of people do it just simply because they're following some of the bigger accounts and they're following their strategies. And that's not necessarily the best thing to do.
But I don't know whether I'd totally agree. I think I was surprised that you took this, Sam, because you are quite good with your engagement. You know a lot about Instagram and how to get more followers and engagement. And this is one of the best strategies to do it, because there are a lot of photos that did really well. And especially over the course of a year or 6 months, your follower base can grow quite large. I know mine doubled in 6 months. And so I ended up posting a photo that I'd posted before that had done quite well. And I got a huge response from it. And I think I got 1,000 followers in a day. And that was just from when I had maybe 20,000 followers. So it was quite a large increase. And it is a great way to improve your engagement and follower base and show your favorite photos to people who may not have seen it because they've only just started following you. And yeah, I do like seeing, I don't think I'd do it myself, but I do like seeing some of those great images again, because you do see them and sometimes they can be a bit iconic or just fantastic shots. And so I like seeing it, and I think it's the people that have done it have done well to really improve their engagement on their Instagram. Yeah, and that's the thing, Instagram isn't their big representation of their photography as a whole. See, but
like my point there as well is everything that you just spoke about is purely about engagement. It's just about engagement, and that's what it is. It's you're taking the easy path to sharing an image to get engagement. It's not I'm doing some hard work creating some new images, showing my new editing techniques and posting it to get engagement. I'm just posting because I know it's going to get great engagement. And that's my point as well, is I think...
And that's what Instagram is.
and for sure, no, I agree with you as well with that as well. I do understand that strategy. I just think a lot of people do it simply because they've seen other people doing it as well. And there's more to photography than just engagement on Instagram. There's more to it, and I think when you're just posting purely just to constantly get that engagement, maybe you might not be doing it for the right thing. I don't know. It's just my feeling, and I think it's also, I can prove that it's the feeling of quite a few others out there. It's no slight on the people that do decide to do it, but at the same time, challenging yourself to constantly be improving, I think, is just one of those things, and that was the point I was trying to make. Point got across to many people, and I'm going to stand by this one, because I just think, like, I come to the end of the year and I look through my Instagram feed and I almost see people just, I don't know, what have they done? Have they just packed their cameras away for the year and just given up? That's the way it kind of seems, It's like, I'm going to share an image from 5 months ago, which is one of my top 10 engaged images on Instagram. Great. Why not, in my opinion, go through your image library, have a look at some other crackers which you haven't even thought about sharing yet, edit them, produce something awesome, tell a new story, and constantly be improving and increasing your story or your overall skill base. So that's just my opinion, and good on the people that do it, because obviously the engagement is what really matters to them there. I just think sharing something new would possibly be just as good of a strategy as well.
I do know where you're coming from, and I just really wanted to argue with you about it. But yeah, it can be a negative influence on people just starting out, thinking that photography is all about engagement, because photography is all about taking photos and Instagram is just a way to share it. So get out there and improve your photography, and don't just focus on engagement. But if you do want people to see your work and grow that base, then that is one of the strategies you can take, but don't take it to heart in terms of your photography goals.
Yeah, I wonder though if somebody creates a new image, edits a new image, or even an old image that we haven't seen before and shares it, and they don't get as much engagement as one of their top 10 images in their own mind, whether they think that's a failure. And I think that alone in itself is maybe the mental space here as well, is I've got 10 days left. I could share 10 images that you've already seen. I know I'm going to get a great engagement. I know I might get a bit of extra growth on my account. Why not do it? my simple fact is you've got 10 days left. Why not share 10 better images that we haven't seen before, and you could probably still get that same growth and engagement on your account. That's just my point of view. And, I understand both sides, obviously. I do this for a living as well and kind of advise people on the best strategies. I don't think reminiscing and kind of focusing on the past is the best strategy. I'm a firm believer that constantly improving and showing new stories, new images, new editing techniques, showing that you're improving is a far better strategy than reposting images that we've already seen before. Simply for the storytelling aspect, if all you care about is the numbers and the amount of likes you get on that picture, that's up to you as well.
Just because an image isn't your top 10 engaged image of the year doesn't mean it's a bad image. It just means that it doesn't do well on the Instagram platform. I mean, a lot of the photos that you probably see winning photography competitions, they may not do so well if they'll put on Instagram, especially if they were quite a large panoramic image, because it just won't show up. But it still doesn't mean that it's not a good image. So don't think that your best engaged images on Instagram are your best images, and the ones that don't do well are your worst images. It's just a way to share your images and, focus on your photography, not on your engagement.
Yep, no, absolutely. And as I say, I know both sides of this, so I completely do understand both sides of this. I personally do feel that many people who are doing these top lists that they're doing at the moment are doing it because other people do it, or because of the bigger Instagrammers in Australia do it, or because the bigger Instagrammers around the world they follow do it. I don't think following other people and following their strategies is always the best strategy. Just because something works because you think 100 other people have achieved success out of it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way forward. And I see these same things happening throughout strategies all over social media. It's like everybody copies each other's process, or everybody copies each other's strategy. Everybody copies what each other are doing. I think a bit of individuality in your own strategies, in your own methods, in your own images, in your own storytelling is a far better way to grow than following the crowd. And that's, again, partly my opinion, partly my reasoning behind those posts. Thank you very much for everybody who gave me a lot of positive support around this. And even some of the guys here in Australia who are currently doing this, who contacted me and said, I completely understand what you're saying, but this is why we're doing it. I 100% understand that. And it was great constructive conversations around that. And hopefully 2017 brings 365 new awesome images for everybody.
I'm just going to copy whatever you do, because whatever you're doing is working. So I'll just use all your hashtags. I'll copy all your stories and methods and just do what you do.
Mate, I'm happy to edit your images for you if you like. Just send them through and I'll do it. Just send me your username and password on your account. I'll do it for you.
Ah, cool. So you'll just manage my Instagram account for me.
No problem at all. Selfies.
If you don't mind as well, I'd like to get a little philosophical about photography with you.
Okay. Well, this might be a bit one-sided, but feel free. Yes.
I know you're probably more in the technical based and results based, but in the past few weeks, I've been trying to think about photography as an art form and think about some of the art throughout history. And in particular, one thing that came up is something that defines art as, or is a definition of art in itself, and that's the painting of the Mona Lisa.
Yep.
And I was thinking, is there a photo that exists, or even possibly could exist, that would have the same magnitude as a painting like the Mona Lisa? Something that could define photography as a whole, or even define art as a whole?
Well, this one's a bit weird for me because the Mona Lisa is very underwhelming when you see it. It's tiny.
Yeah, it is.
So, like, obviously, historically, it's got a great, story behind it. But, like, when you see it in real life, it's like, really? Is that all it is?
But could there be a photo that could be small? I mean, photos, you print them out, they're 4 by 6 inches, or you can print them out a bit bigger. But most cases are probably not going to be much bigger than the Mona Lisa. And when you do see it, it has its own wall to be displayed on, and you'll have hundreds of people just lining up just to get a glimpse of it. But that's something that's lasted hundreds of years. And do you think photography, which is, I guess, throughout history, relatively new in terms of art, do you think that any photo could ever stand up to the Mona Lisa or have that kind of magnitude, or just be something that people would say that is something that defines photography, that defines human art?
Yeah, this is a good one, because like we looked at the Time top 100 images of all time, so obviously these have all got historical importance in some way. Most of them a lot of journalistic style or lifestyle type photography, so things like the Tiananmen Square guy kind of standing up against a tank, those sort of things. I wonder if we may have already seen it, but we just maybe don't recognize it yet, because the amount of images that get produced on a daily basis from cameras the world over, there's just so many of them. So I wonder if we maybe have already seen it, and it's already out there, because obviously photography, you want to kind of convey a sense of emotion in your shots, and I think that's what a lot of really mainstream successful photos are, is they convey emotion, or they unfortunately a lot of them convey negative emotion or human sorrow, human suffering, which is kind of a sad thing, but it's just the way society is. So if some of those ones in the Time top 100 could possibly maybe already be there, I don't know. What's your opinion of this one? Because this is, philosophical stuff is probably your road, not mine. So,
well, as you're saying, like, it may have already been taken, and we just don't see it like that yet. And I was trying to think of a way of describing, or how to describe what I thought of this situation or this particular topic, and I kind of pictured it in a way of seeing two different mountains. Bear with me. Okay. So you've got two different mountains. One's very steep and sort of spiky, so you can see the tip of it, and you know that, okay, that's the summit. So kind of think of a Mount Everest, where you've just got this the typical triangle shape kind of thing, where you know where the point is, where the peak is. And then you've got another mountain that's just as high, but it's very flat and broad. So there's a lot of mass to this mountain. It's very, it's got a lot of volume, but when you get to the top, it's really quite flat because it's spread out over such a large area. So with one of the mountains, a triangle-shaped one, if you're standing at the top, you'd know you're at the top. You know that this is the point, this is the peak. Whereas with the other mountain, you're climbing to the top, and when you're standing up there, you can't really tell where exactly the top is. And I see this as the photography peak, this big, flat, but still tall mountain, because there's such a sheer volume of photos being taken constantly, and there's so many more photos that can be taken than, say, paintings could be painted. So something like the Mona Lisa, you could see, is sitting at the peak of that triangle-shaped mountain, but there's so many other great photos that could be on the really sort of spread out mountain that you can't tell which one really is sitting right at the very top, even though it may be there. It's just so ill-defined.
That's the hard thing, I suppose, when how many photos get taken every day, how many photos get taken and uploaded to social media every day. So it's the amount of images that we see is just huge. The amount of photos that get taken every day is huge. So it's kind of a tough one, and trying to obviously get exposure for images as well. That's the other thing. There's quite often with historical paintings, there is a sense of story behind them, or the artist that has painted it is hugely famous for their time. So I think with photography as well, that's one of the key things, is you tend to find images that are taken by a certain person, or a person with a certain amount of exposure, will more often become more popular. So I think with photography, if we have seen it, it's probably one that we've maybe already seen, or that is taken by someone that is very famous. And I would possibly think of any of those ones in the time top 100 could potentially be what you're talking about. I think photography is more journalistic, more so, whereas painting is probably a bit more creative, if you know what I mean. Like, obviously, photography is creative. It is a creative art, but it is actually capturing something. It's capturing light. It's capturing something that is actually there in front of the camera. Whereas with painting, it could be quite creative. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly what it is. Obviously with photography, we start doing long exposures and those sort of things. It's not at all what you would see with your human eye, but it's still capturing the light that is actually present there at the moment. So I think it's, in a lot of ways, photography is kind of more journalistic than painting or using brush strokes. And as I say, the images that do really well in terms of mainstream are more often or not ones that capture some sort of sense of human emotion. I don't know. That's what I think. I don't normally get too philosophical, but that's my logical way of thinking.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, art is all dependent on taste and what people like, and some people might, like as you said, the Mona Lisa, it's quite a small painting. It can be a bit underwhelming when you see it, but I also try and think of maybe in this technological world, if you could pick an icon based on something that exists, if you had an icon for art or painting, then if you had the Mona Lisa, it'd make sense. But if you had an icon for photography, what would be that icon based on a photo that exists that everyone would say, oh yeah, that describes photography? And I mean, you could have other things as well for paintings, but that particular painting just seems to describe art. And I was just thinking whether photography could even possibly do that based on what it is as an art form, whether it could even get to the magnitude of the Mona Lisa. And yeah, it was just something to think about, and yeah, just think about what photography is and what it does. And as you said, it's the more journalistic or documentary kind of things that tend to stand out more than the artistic side. But yeah, I don't know, just something to talk about.
Are you thinking that you may have taken one on this trip?
All my photos are Mona Lisas in my eyes. No, definitely not. I've got lots of images that could be used for lots of different purposes, but I don't think any of my photos at this stage would be an icon. So I'm looking towards the future. I keep climbing that mountain. 2017. There you go. There's a name for you. Take a Mona Lisa of images in 2017. Hey, mate, if you fall short, at least you fall short trying, you know? Aim for the stars, and if you miss, you'll at least be up in the clouds.
Yeah, exactly. Suffocating from no oxygen. So, look, but look, yeah, it's definitely something to aim for. It's funny because I'm sure a lot of photographers the world over would love to take iconic images, even just iconic images of their local area, you know, images that kind of represent the region that you're visiting. So I'd definitely be interested in knowing what other people thought of this particular topic, whether it would be possible to take the Mona Lisa of photos or taking a photo that has the same impact as the Mona Lisa has had on history and also just on tourism alone, or visitor numbers, or just the particular desire to want to stand in front of this painting, you know. I'd definitely like to know what other people thought of that. And Kieran, I'm waiting for your Mona Lisa of photos. If we don't see it by the end of next year, I will be quite disappointed in you.
I'll post it it'll be my number one in my top 10 list.
top one for 2017.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. Look, if you post the top 10 next year, just make them the top 10 that we haven't seen yet. That would be that would be awesome. Come to the last 10 days of the year and go, here's my top 10 images that I took this year that you haven't seen yet. Excellent. That's exactly what we're hoping for. Well, that's what I'm hoping for.
That almost sounds like clickbait. It's like the top 10 images you've never seen. It's like, oh, what are they?
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How about we move on to what's been going on in the world of photography? Let's have a look at some news. What's hitting the headlines this week?
Mate, heaps. Obviously, Christmas time. I saw a lot of stories in the news about top 10 gifts you should buy people for Christmas. But look, there's been a lot of stuff. Obviously, we spoke last week about mirrorless cameras. So we did a bit of a comparison episode of including mirrorless cameras, and rumour came out this week, which is something I've already heard before, but it's something that's kind of getting a bit of traction, is potentially Canon may be replacing the 6D line, or at least not be releasing a 6D Mark II, but rather releasing a mirrorless camera instead. Now, this would be interesting because the 6D in the Canon lineup really does suit a massive part of the market. I know a lot of people that use the 6D. This is a fantastic full-frame camera. When you compare the 6D to, say, the 5D Mark III or 5D Mark IV, the main difference really is the focus speeds and the amount of focus points on it as compared to everything else. Fantastic low-light camera, amazing camera for its price point. We're kind of talking around the $1,600 to $1,900 AU mark. So the 6D really fills a hole in photography, which is a step up from an APS-C format or a crop sensor camera through to a full-frame pro camera. It sits right in the middle of this lineup, and it's one that it does make sense that Canon may be replacing it, but it's a huge risk, I think, as well on Canon if they do go down this path of maybe calling it the 6D Mark II, which is a mirrorless camera. I don't know. If they do go down this path, it'd be quite interesting to see, because I would have definitely been expecting for them to have released a Mark II version of this camera well and truly by now. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see Canon entering that mirrorless market in a full-frame sense.
Yeah, I would love to get one in my hands if they do. I'd love to give it a test. I would almost be reluctant to replace the cameras that I've got for a first-gen mirrorless camera from Canon. I think, obviously, Sony have done really well that they've had multiple generations of mirrorless cameras now in multiple price points. So they've obviously got the technology or the product advancement behind them. But yeah, it's interesting to see if they do go down this path of replacing the 6D with a mirrorless camera. I think it would be a huge risk on their part, and they would have to be quite committed to it if they did so, because the 6D is such an amazing camera.
So while you were talking there as well, I was getting a bit distracted. I was having a look at the top 20 drone photos of 2016. Ooh. They look amazing.
Ooh, well, it's the best 20 photos. At least they only posted them once, so that's good. But there's some cracking images here. Obviously, drone photography has really taken off and boomed over the last 12 months. Drone photography has been something that's been around for a few years now, but technological advancements in drone photography has really come along quite quickly in leaps and bounds, particularly driven by DJI. And I think driven by DJI with fear of brands like GoPro and those potentially eventually coming into the market. But yeah, to see some of these shots from the top 20 shots of this year from the Dronestagram community. Now, Dronestagram is a website in itself where people kind of submit images and videos from their drones. Really kind of a localized little community. It's almost like a little forum purely for drones. So cracking images there, and even some of like Broome with the little camels on the beach, the camels and the shadows. I see quite a lot of good drone photographers over in WA, particularly up north. So really cool to see some of these shots, and even some with like lava and smoke and all sorts of ones where the drones are up above the clouds and things. So some really cool shots.
Very nice indeed.
Another newsworthy item this week, is probably the last couple of weeks that I've seen, is a new type of filter coming onto the market, which effectively blocks out particular wavelengths which cause light pollution at nighttime. So we're talking, an example of this is to be able to shoot the night sky from within a city. Now, I don't know what sort of quality these will have behind them yet, but I've seen some example shots of these where there's two different types of these filters. One is a drop-in 85 and 100mm filter, so it fits into a square filter holder, very similar to what Nisi or any of the other competitors produce, but also another type of filter which slides in. So basically you lock your mirror up in your camera and it fits in over the top of your actual sensor. So you've got to shoot with this in mirror lockup, again, without actually seeing one in my hands. I don't know how that would work, but I think that the potential here to improve your night photography by blocking out particular wavelengths of light, particularly if you're in situations where light pollution is an issue, could be really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at some of the photos here, and it does make the photos look a bit better, but it just seems to cut out the yellowy or orange kind of light that you'd normally get from, say, street lights or just artificial light. But if you are thinking of shooting in a city, it's not going to darken the sky enough to get, say, a Milky Way shot in the city. If you do have that light pollution, it's still going to affect the sky, but it's just, I guess, cutting out that particular wavelength from your blacks in your photo, it seems. So some of the shots do, I mean, as I said, I haven't been able to see one in my hand or see exactly how it works, but the actual light does seem like something you could probably do in post-production. But It'd be interesting to see and even have a play around with and try it out for myself.
Well, they're definitely marketed at people wanting to cut light pollution from their images. So, again, as you say, some of the examples there are minimal light pollution in the light. We're talking cities on a horizon line, not shooting from a waterfront in the middle of Sydney or any of those types of things. But quite interesting to kind of see this. I wonder why it would have taken so long for somebody to develop something like this. This is quite an interesting one, whether astrophotography has just become a lot more popular these days and really is a niche that some of these equipment producers can see going after now. I'd definitely love to get one of these in my hands. I know one of them is a crowdfunded program and one of them isn't. The crowdfunded one is the one that fits on the front of the lens, and the non-crowdfunded one is one that slides into the camera in mirror lockup mode. So I'd definitely love to see one of these in my hands and actually give it a test. So if any of the manufacturers out there want to send us one, that'd be awesome. We'd definitely love to give it a go.
Do you have any final messages for our listeners for the year, for the end of 2016?
Oh, mate, probably heaps. It's been a huge year for me personally. Obviously, this podcast is a massive, massive part of it, and I've met so many incredible people within the photography community, made some really good friends. I've travelled to a lot of places around Australia. I've pretty much spent, nearly 5 months total on the road traveling, and I've met some incredible people, some amazing people within the photography community. My photography, I can tell you now, has improved in leaps and bounds since the beginning of the year. So look, my biggest thing is thank you for all the wonderful people that I've met, even just as recently as last week in Sydney. Some incredible guys that I've followed on social media for a very, very long time now, and who've inspired me, who I now either regularly go out and shoot with whenever I travel up to Sydney or even to Melbourne or wherever else I'm going. But yeah, look, it's just been an awesome year. And this podcast is evidence of that as well, because we've had so much great support behind us to do it, and really hoping to continue that in 2017. And looking forward, I really hope that we can kind of help continue creating these discussions around photography. And we're not always going to be right, don't expect to, but and I'm certainly no doubt you're going to happily throw me under as many buses as you can, and that's great. If it creates some great discussion around photography, that's what I care about. Even mate, getting out and shooting with you as much as we have this year, and all these awesome conversations that we've had, and the help that you've given me as well alone in things like checking to see whether my sky was green rather than being the actual colour that it should have been is really cool to see. And that's, again, just a sign of a wonderful community of photographers that we have in Australia that I think this year has really kind of highlighted and shown to me.
I guess for me, 2016 has been a massive year for photography and my career in general. I mean, this was the year I went full-time photographer. I've had an exhibition this year. I've had a front cover of a magazine. I've started a podcast, and I've met lots of other photographers. It's just been massive. So I don't know how 2017 is going to top it, but I'm definitely going to try. And this podcast is, I suppose, one of the biggest things of the year. And I guess once when you came to Melbourne and we had went on our little road trip along the Great Ocean Road and just definitely thought this is someone I could do a podcast with. So yeah, I was very happy to meet up with you and learn from you as well as grow my photography.
I got a little tear coming from my eye here.
I know, I'm trying not to cry.
Just going to wipe it out. No, look, I feel the same as well. It's probably one of the biggest things of this year as well is kind of being able to I mean, you've been a huge inspiration for me for a very long time now. With your photography, I've been following you and engaging with you on Instagram for a long time. As I've said before, I think you're our most featured photographer across all of our hub accounts, and it was even well before I ever met you face to face that we did that. So that's a perfect example for me of what 2016 has been about. I've met so many incredible people, built relationships with some great people, made so many awesome friends, and that's kind of allowed me to really enjoy my photography and enjoy all aspects of it. 2017, like I said earlier, I've got a lot of goals for myself. I'm going to develop revenue sources around photography, which I haven't, which I probably haven't seen other people doing. I've got a few little ideas in my mind, and I think a big one of those is also this podcast. We're going to keep growing this and really help hopefully make a difference within the photography community and bring people together and create some great discussions around that. I think you and I have briefly touched on this, and something that I hope that we'll touch on in the next few episodes is potentially bringing our community of listeners together sometime early in the new year. I think that's something that we're both pretty keen on doing, and I know at least one of the brands that we're working with here are quite supportive of doing. So I think hopefully we'll have some news on that within the first couple of podcasts in the new year as well. So that would be really cool to kind of see a little community of listeners coming together for a photo shoot somewhere. So,
are you suggesting that we show our faces in public?
Ooh, I might wear a mask.
Yeah. I'll wear a Tezigrammer mask. I'll just get a printout of your cartoon face and I'll wear that.
Hey, that's not a bad idea, actually. What about t-shirts?
I'm going to have to get a cartoon face of myself, and maybe I can wear that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can do that. I can make one for you if you like. I'll send one through. When you send me your password details for your Instagram account so I can start posting for you, I'll change your icon for you as well. So. Just
don't make the hair orange.
I'll double check with you what colour it is first. Sweet. So yeah, as I said, massive year this year, and it's been really, really cool and really awesome to meet so many cool people. So 2017 is going to be even bigger. 365 incredible images, one a day would be nice.
Happy New Year to all our listeners, and if you're out traveling over this period, stay safe on the roads and have fun. Take lots of nice photos and share them on the Project RAWcast hashtag. Would love to see them.
Cool, mate. Drive safely back from Albany on the way back, and I'm going to hit the road. What's today? I'm going to be hitting the road for the northwest, even further into the northwest tomorrow. So best of luck and no more flat tyres, eh?
Yeah, definitely. All right, cool. We'll catch you later.
All right, mate. See ya. Bye.
Bye.